Today's episode of Northern Lights is presented by North Star Law Group, a trusted partner for small businesses in Minnesota's legal cannabis industry. Whether you've already applied for a license or just getting started, attorney Jen Riza and her team can help you build a compliant business, identify and navigate risks, put together an application, and keep you informed about the ever-changing Minnesota cannabis landscape. Are you ready to add North Star to your team? Visit northstarlaw.com/cannabis and let North Star Law Group guide you through confidently opening your doors. Again, that's northstarlaw.com/cannabis.
Are you growing anything right now?
Yeah, so actually I'm about 3 days out from harvest.
Okay.
We're coming up to being done with this cycle and moving on to a new one. So I've got 2 plants in my apartment right now.
Okay.
First one is a unknown cross that our buddy Dr. Dabbs gave me. It is a blend of orange cookies and mac, just thrown together, and I don't know. It's so far been growing pretty well. I'm excited to see what that finished product look like, to see sort of what it's yielding on that hash side.
Yeah.
But
Could we call it like mac and Cheeto?
Mac and Cheeto. I like that. It's been calling it orange cookie mac, which feels to me like,
is that right? Is that an
OCM?
OCM? Oh, jeez.
Oh my gosh. I don't know if I want the OCM in my apartment.
Definitely not.
Oh, and then in the other tent, I've got some truffle cake.
Oh, yeah.
From our buddy Robert Sloth. He gave me a cut back in July.
Yes.
It's just been sitting in what I usually use is like my veg tent, and it's ready to get flipped over. Wow. So it's a fun transition time right now of sort of being done with one plant.
Right.
And then being ready to start the beautiful flowering phase of the next, and then I get to ask myself, what comes next?
I wonder if you got extra seeds laying around.
I've had a couple.
I've upgraded Overt Sloth to Mr. Sloth.
Ooh, okay.
Because he grows such great flower, and he's also like so kind and generous with the fruits of his labor. Mm-hmm. Great guy. He was
he's
just
probably
here.
the person we talk about most on this show that hasn't actually been on the show.
And he prefers it that way.
He does. David, listen, come on. We'd love to chat with you about some of your cool growing.
Maybe when they get their events going.
Yeah, there we go. Question for you.
Yeah.
Are you growing anything at home?
I've been growing something since do you remember when you launched that Northern Lights beverage?
Oh, being at Modest, absolutely.
Yeah, the Modest.
What was it called again? Northern Lights.
Northern Lights.
Yeah. That's right.
Yeah, I remember the color. It was blue.
There we go. Thanks, Jordan.
Producer Jordan. Well, that was the day I found out that I was starting to grow a family.
Whoa. Dude, that's too long to be growing a plant. You should have, I think, flowered it by this point. No. Congratulations, man.
Thank you.
And you're coming up to.
Yeah, we're gonna have. The plant analogies might not work.
Yeah, we don't want to use the term harvest necessarily for giving birth. Right. But yeah, you and your wife are getting days away.
Probably by the time this podcast comes out, I hope to be a father, and we've been working on it. We've been growing our relationship, growing our house, trying to prepare for this. It sort of took precedent over growing plants this summer.
Yeah, reasonable.
If you do come over, though, you'll see a lot of house plants. I love growing those. Wouldn't mind getting into the cannabis growing once the baby's here, and maybe it's just simple, like an autoflower or something that sits in the windowsill.
Oh, yeah.
It doesn't have to be giant buds, but I think just having a plant in the ground is important. And on that note, talk about getting the plants out of the ground, like what you were up to last weekend.
Oh, yeah. So it is Croptober here in Minnesota. It is that time of year where every single person that was growing outdoors, at least photosensitive plants, not autoflowers, is coming up to harvest time.
And is that partially because they're afraid of the frost?
Yeah, they realize that it's getting cold and they skip out of town. No. It's because of the seasonal change in the amount of hours.
Okay.
So cannabis had to develop a way to know, when do I put out seed? Thousands of years ago, it came up with this photosensitive technique where as the days start getting shorter, closer to like 12 hours of sunlight, they start to begin flowering.
That 12 and 12, that's what you want when you're growing. So plants are coming out of the ground. You were with some guys doing some things. pretty good sized plants, right? This year was great for flowers.
Yeah, this was an incredible year for people growing outdoors in Minnesota. Well, definitely we had to struggle a little bit with some drought at the middle point. We had a ton of rain to start out our season, which was really good for getting those plants started, especially as people were moving them outdoors. So, I was with a grower who's been growing for quite a while, definitely a good chunk of time. And he had huge plants.
Wow.
But I also went to a friend's house. This is his first year ever growing, not just like outdoors, not just legally, but ever. He also had huge plants. I think this was just a season that if you were looking to grow really big plants outdoors in Minnesota, that was very achievable.
And what would you guess the amount of weight that you can get off a large outdoor plant compared to some of the plants that you grow in your tent? Are we talking about much larger yields?
Yeah, significantly larger. So I think if we're looking at, obviously, I just want to stay out front. All the plants that I harvested were under 2 pounds per person. That's an important distinction. But stepping aside from the legal aspect and into the realistic aspect, plants indoors, you grow them, you could get a few ounces if you're starting out. If you're doing a really good job, you can get, decently close to a pound of indoor material just from a single plant when grown under the right light conditions.
Okay.
Outdoors, probably closer to like 6 or 7 pounds.
Wow. Yes. We're talking huge
plant.
bushes. They would look big in this room.
Yeah, they would be huge. They were taller than I was. To harvest the top part, we needed to get on a ladder.
Wow.
And those were all grown totally legally in Minnesota. It was less than the 4 flowering plants, actually. There were only 3 in there. And yeah, they were really, really big plants.
Amazing.
Yeah. I think this is the time of year where if you're harvesting, you probably have a decent amount of flower. And so now is the time to be sharing it around with people, to be sharing the wealth. And it's
but 2 pounds,
time.
2 pounds per plant does not literally work. It's not realistic given the summer that we had. And that's not the grower's fault necessarily. You could just put the seeds in the dirt and expect them to grow, and they're going to grow larger than the legal limit.
Yep. Yeah. It is a very interesting act of nature, of legislation coming together, where we have laws that limit you to how much you can have, but the plant doesn't have to follow those. They don't care about that.
Yes.
So we get in this situation where you have a plant, maybe you have 2 adults in your home, it's over 4 pounds. What do? You were following the law up until that point. What I've been told is you just give it away.
Yeah, sure.
Just give it away.
Yeah.
So if anyone's looking to give away some flower, Jordan, are you looking for any weed right now?
Constantly.
Yeah. That's fair.
Should we take a quick break and get into some news?
Ooh, I like that. We'll be right back. Ready to kick off your home grow? We've got the perfect hookup for you. MinnesotaCannabisSeeds.com. They've got everything from fast flowering strains to unique hybrids, all ready for growing in Minnesota. And guess what? Our listeners get an exclusive deal. Use the code NL10 for a 10% discount on your entire order. Don't miss out and get started with the best seeds. Start your growth strong with MinnesotaCannabisSeeds.com. Remember, NL10 for 10% off at MinnesotaCannabisSeeds.com. Grab your seeds today. I just wish there was some way that I could tell people that I lived in Minnesota, that I liked cannabis, that I was a listener of the Northern Lights podcast. There is! Northern Lights merch!
Dope.
You can get yours today! mncannabiscollege.org/Northern Lights. Get your shirts, get your mugs, check it out. Get it all today.
It just keeps going, doesn't it?
I wonder, does it just loop?
I've never listened to the whole thing before. I thought that was it.
Me too.
That was longer than the general application process.
And we're back. All right, so Steve, today we're breaking apart our news segment into two different clips. One, we're going to be focusing on news happening here in Minnesota, and then there's so much news happening around the country in regards to adult use and also just hemp that we really want to be able to cover. So we're going to sort of do a little bit of all of it today.
Yeah.
But first, we're going to start with a poll. And Steve, Jordan, I don't know if you guys have seen this yet, but if you had to guess, the OCM took over jurisdiction over the hemp industry and THCA flower back on August 1st. How many pounds of illegal flower do you think has been seized in Minnesota by the OCM since that started?
Right. I want to say like 116 pounds.
Okay. All right. What is your guess?
I was gonna guess in the thousands. I have no frame of reference for this though.
Yeah. No way. So the correct answer, Steve, you actually weren't that far off.
I read the article. Yeah.
All right, that's fair. 190 pounds of weed, which the OCM says has a street value of just over $500,000.
Okay.
That's a decent chunk of flower.
What is the OCM estimating that pound at? Like, what's the math? Is it?
Oh, let's do the math here on the fly.
If
So
you
if
don't
we
mind,
take
yeah.
500,000,
500,000, which is the estimated value of 190 pounds.
and just they actually estimated 560,000. So we'll bump that up just so we're a little bit closer to what their actual is.
Yeah.
And then that divided by 190 pounds, put their price per pound. Ooh, $3,000.
Okay.
That's an expensive pound.
That is.
I suppose they're probably looking at the retail of it broken apart by quarters or eighth or
Right.
however they're doing that. But whew.
3,000, that's usually kind of on the high end per pound.
Yeah. Yeah, because that would be, they're paying, I can do simple math. There are
416.
16. There we go.
Yeah.
Yep. I sold. Yep.
Not
That's-
well.
Nope. $184 an ounce is what they're estimating on that price.
And the going rate for cannabis at a dispensary right now is about $3.80 an ounce.
Yeah.
Based on the last time we looked.
Interesting.
So okay, fine. But when I looked through that MinPost article,
Yeah.
what I was looking for was names. I wanted stores. I wanted receipts.
Oh yeah.
Peter Callahan left the receipts out of the article, which I respect as a journalist, but that's what gets the clicks.
Yeah, 100%. And I think it would be interesting to see, what types of shops is it that are selling these? Like, is it the not pseudo dispensaries, but the shops that set up to operate in the hemp market geared towards becoming a dispensary?
Mm-hmm.
Or is it what I highly suspect, like tobacco shops that really aren't geared towards cannabis generally, aren't necessarily staying as up to date on regulations?
Yeah.
I think it's probably closer to that.
Also, I've heard this just recently that the tobacco shops are not really selling a lot of tobacco these days.
Yeah, I would have to imagine.
It's a lot of hemp. And they're branded as smoke shops, but it's more so the layout, the smells, the product offerings. But more than likely, they're making most of their money on low dose edibles or high dose flower.
Yeah.
Depending on who you are.
Yeah, and I think what we also saw from OCM is high dose edibles as well. There are a lot of places that are continuing to sell hemp-derived edibles that just don't follow the guidelines that were written in Minnesota.
Yes. My good old 3000 HHC blend.
Exactly. Yeah, those still are apparently on shelves in Minnesota. I haven't seen them in a minute, but THCA flower I definitely have seen a lot bouncing around. And,
Okay.
it's very interesting to see OCM being so proactive on being restrictive towards that.
Yeah.
They're continuing to hire more people as investigators.
Yeah, cracking down.
So we'll continue to see, I think, more of this.
I think that's a good thing for the recreational market to try to pull some of the cheaters or the early retailers of this new legal commodity.
For sure. Yeah, I think the discourse online, which take it for what you will, shout out Emma and Trees community, I think is two different takes. One, this is bad because people are selling illicit flower out of like licensed stores that aren't licensed to sell cannabis.
Right.
And the other one is, man, we're 19 months out from legalization happening.
Yeah.
Still no stores have opened outside of our tribal nations that are selling flower.
Right.
And OCM is putting a lot of effort, maybe not towards licensure, but now towards enforcement, is a take that some people online have.
Yeah.
I think it's a little bit of both. I think it's good to see stores that are following the rules being given. Let me rephrase that. I think it's good to see stores that are compliant being supported by regulators.
Yeah.
And stores that are non-compliant, that are just hurting the industry, being shut down by regulators.
Right.
Do I like to see cannabis continue to lead to more seizures by the state? No. Do I think it's good for the cannabis industry as a whole? Yeah, probably.
Yeah, I hear you. It'd be fun to have a illicit operator on the show, but then again, would we get pushback for platforming someone who's, not following the rules, but
For sure.
getting their perspective would be interesting.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It certainly exists, right? You can find these shops. I mean, also think about it. There's 4,000 places that sell hemp-derived products nowadays.
Yep.
And so how many liquor stores, how many tobacco stores do you drive past that you don't stop at? And you could just wonder what's inside.
Oh, yeah. So you have 8 staff doing inspections. They've got 4,000 businesses. And those are only the people that have actually registered, which I imagine there's products being sold at businesses that are not registered
Of
still.
course, probably.
And so enforcement will continue to happen.
Sure. Whack-a-mole.
Yeah, exactly. I mentioned a little bit about the OCM not yet issuing licenses. That's another thing that I wanted to talk about today, is really looking at the timeline for when we can expect those to happen. We got some good information out of some local reporters this week, some information that OCM sent out to their partners, a variety of sources that gave us a better picture on when that lottery will actually happen. The big question that everyone is asking, we've had these applications submitted. When will we know who actually got the application license?
Right. There's 1,800 plus applicants, 282 potential licenses.
Yep.
But they're having to work through to understand if the applicants are really who they say they are, if they are really attached to the business, or if it's I don't know, how would you describe that?
Yeah, so they call it the true party of interest in statute.
Okay.
So in essence, they don't want people to be able to manage 6 different businesses just by, using ownership structures to make it so they're not totally an owner, but they're sort of an owner. So this says if you own more than 10% of the business, you're considered a true party of interest. And you can only be on one application as a true party of interest.
Right.
So what they're doing is going through and reviewing literally every single application.
Yeah.
Looking at every single person that was part of every application to see, hey, did this guy actually apply over here? Does this shell company have 6 owners and one of them is also an owner of this shell company?
Wow.
Going through all of that.
Wow. It reminds me of a movie when they're trying to put together the bad guys.
Yeah, it does. And what's unfortunate is, well, there's multiple ways of looking at it.
Of course.
One of the things that they wrote into statute is that people can only be part of one application. Now, I personally think this is good. So that way we're not having people submit 50 applications because they can pay for it, and now in the lottery they get 50 tickets. But what it also means is that they have to review every application before they can even draw out of the pot. If they didn't have that, what would have happened is that people would have submitted applications, and the next day the state would have pulled out 10 and said, we're going to review these 10. And as long as they pass inspection, these are the people that get licenses. Sure. Because they don't really have to review all the rest of them if they're not actually getting approved.
Right.
But because that true party of interest was included, which again, I think is good, it means that they're having to review every single application. They're taking, from the state, they said that they take about 4 hours per application
Yeah,
to
I
review.
heard, or more.
Yeah.
Yeah.
It's really been insane. And shout out to the state for trying their best for getting this chugging along. But man, has it been slow rolling.
What is it called? Creative Services is the...
Yeah. Creative Services Inc. is a service provider that they brought in.
Yeah.
That's reviewing the applications, that was in charge of verifying people's social equity applicants. It's a lot of reviewing.
Yeah.
But
reviewing creative business ideas.
Yes. I'm sure there's a lot of creative business ideas. So let's talk about the question that everyone's asking: when will that lottery happen? Well, it looks like it's about to happen in December. We'll have, by the end of the year, a better picture on that first social equity round, who has those licenses.
And I did watch the Fox 9 article. Shout out to Corin is his name. I have a fun fact about Corin. I once went on a run with him across the Stone Arch Bridge. Did not know he was a Fox 9 reporter. It was just... Anyway, long story. I'll tell you that off air, but cool.
If you want to come on the podcast.
Yeah, be a good luck. I'm a bird. I wonder who's the slowest state. That's what came out of this. Like, I know we're seen as on pace to be the 5th slowest of all 23 states to legalize. I don't know if you know off the top of your head, but
so it's so funny you asked that, because I really wanted to bring to the group the stats on who was the quickest to roll out, who's been the slowest. And they cite that in the news article.
Oh, they do.
I wasn't able to find anywhere that actually lists how long the rollout was. I'm sure someone could sit down, and I'm sure someone did sit down and see how many days from bill passing to stores opening. It's just not available anywhere online that I could find, and didn't have enough time, unfortunately, to go through and review all of them.
Sure. I want to say New York was pretty slow. Couple years.
New York was slow. I also know that the medical program, I'm going to get the wrong state, but a state down south took almost 4 years to roll out.
Sure.
So we're better than that, I guess.
Yeah. It's very Minnesotan to not be last, not be first.
Yep.
Somewhere in between.
Yeah. Middle of the pack, 24th if you want. Yeah. The Fox 9 article was funny. It gave a special shout out to Ohio as a state that legalized after us, but that has opened stores already.
Right.
And happens.
And I did hear reading or listening was Ohio had a much more robust medical program.
Exactly.
Which allowed them to on-ramp more quickly.
Yep.
We do not have a robust medical program.
No.
But we should plug something later in the show about fighting for more medical products.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
We should plug that in like just a second here.
Okay.
That's actually a really good transition because unfortunately we really just don't have much more to share about the licensure update. We know the lottery will happen by December. We can assume that general round, so that first round of non-social equity applicants, will open by like March.
Okay.
But it's based on a rough estimation that the state gave. More to come.
Yeah, I'm sure they want to finish this by the end of the year, but there's nothing. I mean, besides the interim directors saying, later, not sooner, but this year, that leaves December. But
so let's we're gonna draw a line in the sand. I'm gonna ask both of you guys to put your flag in the ground. There were people in this article saying we're not gonna have stores open selling product before 2026. So we're here now.
Oh, yes.
It's October 2024. Do we think stores will open to sell products before January 1st of 2026? So it's a year and 2-ish months out. What do you guys think?
I think yes.
You think yes?
I think yes.
Yeah?
But by a baby's fart. It's going to be...
Okay. Yeah.
just before the holiday sales.
They're going to, capitalism, They're going to lean in.
I could see it. I'm going to say after January 1st,
Right.
just based on the track record of everything thus far.
See, yeah, the realist in me agrees with you, but like the guy who's been saying 2 more years for the past 16 years is like... yeah.
You know what I like more than stores?
What do you like more than stores?
Stores and Bickle.
Stores and Bickle. Wait, what is Stores and Bickle?
Stores and Bickle is a medical cannabis device that you can use. It's a dryer vaporizer.
You mean like this one?
Oh, yeah.
Oh, shit.
That's Stores and Bickle. That's the Mighty.
Crazy.
Remember the Mighty?
Yeah,
You remember
I've
the Mighty.
used that a couple times.
Remember the volcanoes at the Wilderness?
I've used that one a couple times too.
Yeah, that's Stores and Bickle. They're great. They're out of Germany, but they have a great team in the U.S., and we're working with them now.
I dig it. Wait, so we get to use the Mighty more?
Mighty More, yeah. It's a dryer vaporizer. It's actually one of the safest ways to consume cannabis because you're not actually combusting the flower. You're just heating it up.
That's pretty cool. Did you know that when we first started rolling out our medical program, one of the biggest concerns that people had around having flower in our program, the police were concerned about the sales. I don't care about that. The medical concern that people were worried about is we're going to have medical patients with cancer and lung issues and all these other ailments combust and consume hot air into their body with burnt plant material. That's what you see as medicine. And dryer vaporizers definitely were able to sort of be that middle step.
Yeah, had they heard of Jürgen Bickle, and they may have changed their opinion on it because it's not seen as a medical device in the U.S., but in Germany and other countries, it is seen as a medical device. We just happen to have weird FDA rules.
When are we going to Germany? They have legal weed now.
Legal
I get
weed.
that they don't have stores, but there are people growing there. I'm sure there are co-op type models. I just want to see what a German grow up looks like.
Yeah, well, I have family in Switzerland. We could go to Switzerland. We could drive to Germany, Could bring the
Northern
whole family.
Lights live from Germany. What's that time difference? If we did it at like 9 p.m. there, it would be like...
It's
It's about
8 hours.
plus 7.
7,
Okay.
8 hours. Yeah.
All right, yeah. So that could be, people would wake up, drink their coffee with us.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
That could be fun.
Mm-hmm.
If you have a recording studio in Germany, reach out to us. We'd love to come and hit you up. And I would say we'd bring weed, but I think
They've
that's
got it. Yeah,
illegal.
no,
So
don't
we
bring
won't-
weed.
Yeah. We'll find it there. Yeah.
We'll talk to Haley. We'll get
There we
we'll
go,
get something set
exactly.
up. Yeah.
Well, so I do want to talk a little bit about our medical program, because every year we sort of had this annual dance of, man, our medical program sucks. Wouldn't it be cool if we could have more things? And up until this year, more people qualifying for our med program.
Yeah.
Now, last year they passed legislation. It changed it so that if you want to become a med patient, you actually don't need to have one of the qualifying conditions.
Right.
It's anyone that your doctor says, yeah, you'd qualify under this.
You can go to any doctor's office. You don't have to go to one particular building. You just have to talk to your medical provider.
Yeah, in fact, I've even heard there's like websites you can go to that will help you get your med card. And I definitely would encourage people to explore that if you're looking to explore what medical cannabis looks like. But my one hesitancy has always been the cost of our med program
Yeah.
and the restrictiveness of what the products available are. If you want a vape card, great. If you want gummies, great. If you want flour, awesome. If you want anything else beyond that, though, it's pretty limited in what you're able to get. So they created this process in statute that allows people to come and petition the Department of Health, but this year, the Office of Cannabis Management, to say we should be able to sell more things out of our store. And I wanted to shout this out because we're in that in-between time where people can be providing public comments for this.
Yes.
So sort of like when we were talking about the rulemaking before, go and get your comments heard. If you have thoughts on any of the things we're about to talk about, you actually can go to the Department of Health website. Well, I guess Office of Cannabis Management website.
Yeah.
We'll put that in the show notes. And you can submit comments on any of these forms of consumption. And some of them you might have heard less of, but some of them are actually really common. The first one is vaporized concentrates.
Is that what we do?
That all the time. That's so the Puffco is like made for vaporized concentrates. Currently, they can sell concentrates out of the med program, just only in a vape cart. It has to be in the cart, and then they can sell it.
Right. Which is more expensive.
It is more expensive. They can also sell it in a syringe that you can fill your own carts with.
Okay.
But it's not really something that people are going to be using, like a Puffco or some sort of like a vaporized concentrate.
Right.
This would allow people to have resins, rosins, all of those types of things that previously the med program wasn't able to sell. In fact, I recall being at a sort of like a Minnesota Cannabis College class after party at the Wilderness, chatting with someone who worked for one of the med programs and just saying like, hey, I'm not going to talk about this on the podcast, which I am, but why don't you guys have like rosin? Like that's really what I'm looking to buy. And as a med patient, like, yeah, it'd be a bit spendy, but I might buy it if it's local and available.
Yeah, I remember that.
And her whole thing was, or their whole thing, his whole thing, whatever it be,
Yeah.
was we would love to. The state says we can't. It's not an authorized version. This would make it a method that people could consume.
And as the medical market continues to open up and go beyond just to businesses,
Yeah,
we would start to see more competition and quality
exactly.
for some of this more highly refined product.
And it's so perfect because the reason that these petitions matter so much this year is not just because it increases access for patients, which is important. I don't mean to put that aside. But these are the rules that would go into effect next summer.
Okay.
Next summer, there's going to be other stores opening.
Next summer
allegedly.
sounds like a lot of fun.
Yeah. And those places, if they're selling medical cannabis, then they wanted to sell vaporized concentrates as medical cannabis, which they would already be selling as adult use products.
Yes.
They just wouldn't be able to sell it as a med product. This would make it so that now Rise, Green Goods, but also anyone else that gets into our med program
Right.
would be able to just sell concentrates like we all know.
Yeah, that sounds more robust.
That's much more robust.
One thing that I was not familiar with was dry powder inhalers.
Yeah, absolutely.
you
Jordan,
ever-
have you heard of that before?
No.
Yeah. So
Have you ever done it?
no, I've seen it talked about before.
Okay.
I've seen pictures of them before. I've never actually seen it in person, and I've never met someone that has used one of these products. But picture it this way: when you have asthma or any other product that you're using an inhaler for, you're inhaling like this. It's like a powder of sorts. It's sometimes a liquid.
Chalky.
Yeah.
It's always had a little chalky element to it.
So now picture that in that suspension is powdered THC. ready to be absorbed by your body, being able to skip the entire liver process that edibles does, and instead, just like an inhaler provides medication to your lungs, into your bloodstream, this would provide THC directly into your lungs, into your bloodstream.
Take all my money.
Yeah. I think it's a really cool innovation. I mean, we were talking earlier about like people who don't want to smoke, but are still looking for an instant effect. Vaporizing is one way, but if people are still maybe a little bit iffy towards that, this provides a similar effect, but in a way that's at room temperature.
How would it be sold? I wonder what the units are, or like is it by weight? I wonder how that is.
Yeah, so it's similar to like a
300 puffs.
Yeah.
Oh, yeah.
Like that's what
Actually, like
Right.
100%.
That's what an actual inhaler would say. It would be like it has a little countdown. Like anytime you press the little thing down,
Yeah.
Yep.
just a little ticker goes, and it just goes to $2.99.
I remember.
$2.98.
I have done this. I think.
Okay.
I think when I was living in California, I found this product, and it was very niche, very like high end, but meant for like the non-cannabis user.
Mm-hmm.
And it was sort of just like a vape cart, but it was like you primed it. Almost, it was like the equivalent of a Polaroid camera.
Yeah.
You like twist the dial to like trigger it, and then you inhale it, and then it like counts down. So it would have enough like pods or whatever it was inside that like
For sure.
distributed the THC.
Yeah, this is like the one step further of, because I have seen those as well, where it's like you're creating a little bit of vapor that you're able to inhale. This is removing any heat at all. It is literally just
Dry.
powder.
Huh.
Put it into your lungs.
I like that.
Yeah, I think it's pretty
Like-
neat.
But
'Cause
it's
for me, like the process I hate of consuming cannabis the most is smelling like cannabis smoke.
Sure,
After, like,
sure.
I love flower. Like the smell of flower is amazing, but once it's combusted, I don't know if it's like a,
For sure.
guilt Christian shame thing in me growing up, or like it's just like I don't know. But
Yeah.
yeah,
We're gonna get you a dryer vaporizer to test out.
Yeah, absolutely.
I'll be your guinea pig.
See how that works.
Oh, yeah.
Because then you'll have less of that smell because you're not actually burning it.
Right.
But it's more so about the patients, and it's more so about their health conditions that would require them to be dry powder inhaler versus like, I mean, we have our tastes and preferences as consumers, but I would imagine the dry powder inhaler is more based on somebody's asthma or lung conditions, things like that.
Yeah, and the one other thing that I want to plug about it is that vaporized concentrates, vaporized flower, unfortunately, even as a med patient, like I live in an apartment, I technically can't use that indoors. I can go outside, and I do all the time. But it's not necessarily what we want to require med patients to do if they need immediate effect. This would allow them to, in their apartment, in their multifamily home, in their business, wherever, be able to still be getting the medicinal effects of that without needing to like step outside.
Okay.
Which I know might still be some stigma attached around, which this would, I mean, totally remove the cannabis from the cannabis. And then one other method that they're looking at that I want to quick plug is infused cannabis flower.
Right.
Now, this one has become a little bit more popular in the rec market in other states.
What are some of the slang?
Moon rocks is what you might see them
Yeah.
called. I've seen them called snow caps, where it's like powdered white because it's literally covered in THC powder. I think things like that are definitely an interesting way for people that are looking for a higher THC dose but still want that classic smoke effect. So we'll see how they end up moving forward with those.
Shoots you to the moon.
Yeah, very much so. Vaporized concentrates has been petitioned before, and it wasn't approved by the Department of Health about 3 years ago. We'll see how each of these three get approved this year.
Right. From a marketing perspective, one of the things that bums me out about the powers that be in the tech space is if you use a marketing email platform that has an SMS option, you often can't get approved to do text campaigns as a cannabis business. But how nice would it be if the Minnesota Cannabis College, with all of the students that we've worked with, like how nice would it be to be able to just do text campaigns and be able to send out, hey, the 300, however many people, like, check this out, like vote or voice your opinion for vaporized concentrates. So it's like a lot of the activism type work, it has to be done like on a one-by-one basis because you're not able to like mass communicate with the people.
Yeah, 100%. I guess we'll
Topic for another day, but
hopefully using the platform that we have and the time that we have to to give people the information. So we'll link that in the show notes below. Now through November 5th, I'm going to say that again. November 5th is the last day that you can submit that in public comments. So definitely go on and do that. Make your voice heard.
Yeah.
It's an opportunity that, it might seem limited right now to only the few thousand medical patients or the couple of businesses, but we need our med program to continue to meet the needs of our patients. And this is just one way that we can hopefully get closer towards that.
Vote for vaporized concentrates.
There we go. So check out the show notes. Submit those comments by November 5th. What's that date again? November 5th. Submit those comments in the show notes. We're going to take a short break here. And when we get back, we're going to sort of expand out from Minnesota and look at some things happening nationally, both around the election and around some actions that might spell some bad news for hemp businesses. So stick around for that. We'll be right back. Ever felt like running a cannabis business means running in circles just to get basic banking? Union Bank and Trust gets it. They've been helping cannabis businesses for over 10 years, solving problems like securing accounts, managing cash flow, and navigating regulations. No more jumping through hoops, no more runarounds. Just straightforward banking solutions built on trust, integrity, and performance. Check out unionbankandtrust.com today. That's unionbankandtrust.com. Hey, Kale.
Hey, what's going on, Tanner?
Nothing much. So we're here with Kale from Seed and Sesh. Super excited to be chatting with you today. Kale, I'm looking for something to do on Tuesday nights. Have any ideas for me?
Well, Tuesday nights on Payne Avenue are normally pretty quiet, but we do have home grower meetup nights on Tuesday nights. So, we have our little community of home growers out here, and when we opened the store, I realized there are a lot of people out here who have been growing a lot longer than me, and there's a lot of people who are looking to get into it, and so we wanted to just create a space where people could come and talk about their home grow and dispel some myths, and maybe I had people bring in compost for other folks, and
Cool.
It's a lot of fun. It's Tuesday nights, 6 p.m. to 8 p.m. Bring your own flower if you'd like. We encourage people to enjoy their flower and share their flower outside, but we always have events. We're looking to start getting some more classes rolling on Tuesday nights because people are looking to get just more information and more interactive stuff going on. So
Cool.
Yeah.
So if I'm a grower, I should come on down to these events?
Oh, absolutely. Even if you're not a grower, but you're like curious about growing, or maybe somebody gave you a plant and it's in your window and you want to figure out how to like not kill it. Maybe you don't really want to grow like super big weed and you don't want to invest a bunch of money, but just the idea of it's really fun. Like I have folks who just like to make edibles, and they come down and they get to learn about how to make their edibles better and things like that. So it's turned into a really cool community. There's a lot of different folks that come out. So
And remind me, where can people find Seed and Sesh?
so you can find us on Instagram at DD. That's like Dabbler Depot, Seed and Sesh. Also, you can find us at ddseedandsesh.com. And you could just stop down by the shop. We're at 949 or 951 Payne Avenue. They're right next to each other. You can't miss us. We're right across the street from Brunson's.
Sounds like a fun time. You know where I'll be on Tuesday.
All right.
And
we'll
you
see
should be there too.
Absolutely. We'll see you there.
Anyone who says OCM can't get mad at me is just
Yeah.
operating at a maturity level underneath the one that I prefer to.
Should we talk about Dugas's Instagram story yesterday?
Should we?
I think we could. I think it's a good reminder for our industry. So for people who didn't see, John Dugas, owner of Superior Molecular, really cool guy. Shout out to Dugas. And we should say you work for Superior,
I
right?
do.
So before this conversation begins, blah blah blah, all that stuff.
But this is public. This is public information.
Super public stuff. We posted it. He posted it on the public Instagram, not followed by me. And he just posted the screenshot of the OCM rules around testing.
For beverages.
And then the next screen zoomed in slightly.
Yes.
And then the next screen zoomed in even tighter to the phrase that says per batch. And he's just, I think it's a good reminder for our industry that testing per batch is what is required. When people complain like, man, these tests are really expensive, it's because every time you're making a new batch of product,
Yeah.
you're testing that. And,
So let me take you through a theoretical.
yeah, for sure.
Okay, so you're a theoretical brand. You're a new brand, and
Yeah.
you want to get your brand off the ground.
Totally.
Let's say you want to make gummies, and you want to make, let's say, like 500 bags.
Sweet.
Enough to have a good amount of supply. One store is not going to buy you out. You've probably got enough inventory for a couple months.
Yeah, for
500 bags. The cost to produce the gummies is only maybe 75% on the high end. The additional 25% comes from full panel testing.
Yep.
And so when you look at premium products, or you look at the price tag associated with our low dose hemp-derived edibles, intrinsically they're more expensive because of the testing that goes into the product.
Oh yeah. And it's a really good reminder that like economies of scale really impact the final cost of the product.
Yeah.
Because if you're, a small brand, you're getting upstarted, like you said, maybe you're even making your own gummies.
Maybe.
You then suddenly have to do full panel testing for every batch that you do. And that batch could be pretty small.
There you go. Yeah.
Versus, we might know a company over in Wisconsin that has a huge depositor machine.
Oh.
They're able to do batches in the hundreds of thousands of units.
Yes.
That testing becomes significantly cheaper.
Right. And if you're
per unit.
If you're a new brand, it might be easier to buy product off the shelf from an established manufacturer that, might have made a batch of 25,000 gummies, something like that, instead of 5,000 gummies, because then you're able to ask for a discounted price, or you're maybe able to barter a little bit more with the manufacturer. Hey, I know full panel testings are usually $500, but like, can I get a little bit of a price break since I'm just buying part of your batch? And so I really would say for all brands, whether you're rec, tribal, hemp, it's important to just get the ball rolling and start to get traction in the industry, get some sales under your belt, work towards that ideal product or that ideal brand that you want to build, and start by keeping your costs as low as possible in the beginning.
Yeah, that testing is, I think people who don't work in the industry might not realize like how much of that final cost is really just making sure that what's in the bag is actually what it says is in the bag.
Yes.
It's something that when you're buying cereal or something, they don't have to do full panel testing every time they're making Cheerios.
Right.
Or if they do, they're doing it on a scale that is
Massive,
so much larger.
Massive.
Yeah.
Yeah, what's in the bag? What's in the barrel?
What's in the bag?
Yeah. Yeah.
Well, so with that, let's leave Minnesota.
Sure.
I'm excited to
Should
talk
we go to
about
South Dakota?
do this more, in the future. But yeah, let's talk about some things happening around our country.
Okay.
Do you want to talk about the positive or the negative first?
The positive.
All right. I love it. This November, we have the opportunity to have 4 more states bring cannabis online, either through adult use or medical,
Okay.
which is pretty cool.
Yeah.
That would be a major step forward. We're at 25 legal states on the adult use side.
Yep.
This could push, if all of them pass, that up to 28, which would be a pretty big step towards getting the vast majority of our country under a legal program.
So you're talking about South Dakota,
Talking about South Dakota,
North Dakota,
talking about North Dakota.
and Nebraska?
Unfortunately, Nebraska is not yet voting on adult use.
I see.
I'm talking about our friends down in Florida.
Florida.
Absolutely. I'm sure not many people there right now are thinking about the election ballot,
Yeah.
but as they get closer to November, they will be voting on whether Florida should be another adult use state.
Yeah, thoughts and prayers with everything going on in Florida.
Oh, yeah. So let's return to our neighbors, as you mentioned, in South Dakota. And what we're going to do here today is we're going to talk through a little bit about what the measure currently is, what people are voting on, and then what it would look like if it actually passed in that state. We're starting with our friend in South Dakota. They have Measure 29 being voted on this year. Now, Measure 29 would not create like a full, entire legal adult use industry.
Why would they want that?
God forbid. Instead, what it would do is it would legalize personal use and possession for adults over the age of 21. So it goes from being illegal to legal to have and possess cannabis.
When you sent me over the overview for this, my question was, this is only legalizing personal use and possession. This doesn't create a retail infrastructure for recreational cannabis.
No. So viewers might remember, South Dakota actually voted on what an adult use market could look like back in 2020. And it passed. It passed in the state. It created a medical program and an adult use program.
In 2020.
In 2020, until their governor, Kristi Noem, was elected and came in and sued, saying that a measure can only cover one topic. And this covered legalization, recreational sales, medical, a bunch of topics.
A bundle of sorts.
A bundle of sorts. Now, I think it covered cannabis, which to me feels like one topic, but the courts disagreed with me. And so this measure was made to be as simple as possible.
Okay.
It is legalizing adult use possession of cannabis.
Which helps destigmatize cannabis across the Midwest.
Yep.
It's a step in the right direction.
It's a step in the right direction. It means that people that drive to Minnesota to pick up products could come back home and maybe not as be concerned about local police being upset about their little road trip.
Or if you remember in the olden days, if you were transporting hemp through South Dakota, you'd be less likely to get pulled over and put in jail.
Yeah. Yep. And so now we're getting close to a place where South Dakota might actually be a legal state, and we'll continue to see what that measure looks like. Now, the legalization measure they had for adult use and medical passed with 54% of the votes back in 2020. Spoiler alert, people have not gotten more anti-weed.
No.
They now have a legal neighbor, us.
Yes.
Hi, friends.
Hello.
And so I really do think that this is likely to be a measure that passes this year.
It's a friendly measure. It doesn't build infrastructure for businesses. They do have medical dispensaries, but one thing to note on the medical dispensaries is these medical dispensaries are not able to just carry anybody's low-dose hemp-derived products. There has to be a clear chain of custody that shows that this is like what I call clean hemp, or it's clearly hemp-derived Delta-9. It's not Delta-9 from, California or something like that.
Yeah, very much so.
And so a lot of these medical dispensaries are taking a precautionary approach to the Minnesota products, or the low-dose hemp-derived products. But it would be fun to go to. I guess I'm not a medical patient. I don't know. It would be kind of fun to get inside of a store like Roy's, a dispensary, and like see what the product experience is like in South Dakota.
Yeah. I think, as each state comes online, either on the medical or adult use side, it's cool to see what that brand of Minnesota cannabis, of South Dakota cannabis. I was looking at Green Goods menu yesterday.
Okay.
They've got this new product in Minnesota called Mixed Salad, and it's like a new brand they're starting to roll out. But that same type of product in Massachusetts is called Small Ass Buds. It's just a totally different brand. It's just, it's the same flat, like they're growing. It's the same SOPs and all that stuff.
Man.
But it's that fits Maryland. Small Ass Buds might not sell as much in Minnesota.
Sure.
What is that South Dakota cannabis going to look like? I don't know. I'm excited to see. Is it going to have just like a bunch of presidents' faces on it? I don't know. I think we've gotten weed before that had a president's face on it.
We have.
I don't know. Who knows?
Shout out to the bakery.
Yeah. Oh, there we go. All right. Well, let's move north a little bit to North Dakota.
Good
the
one.
other Dakota.
Yes.
Which, by the way, a high thought someday.
Yeah.
Do we need two Dakota? Doesn't matter.
Do you have a favorite?
Yes. So let's move on and talk about North Dakota. North Dakota, they are voting on a measure that would do something similar to South Dakota, but slightly further advanced. It similarly would not set up adult use sales, but it would legalize personal possession of cannabis. And it would also legalize a small amount of growing. You'd be able to have up to 3 plants per household with a limit of 6 plants per household. So you got 2 adults there. You each have your 3 plants.
It's like, as Marcus would say, it's Minnesota light.
Exactly. So it's moving closer towards legalization.
Right.
Still not allowing sales, but at least stopping arrests around it.
You know where you can get sales?
Where's that?
Moorhead.
Ooh, I'll be
Have
talking
you-
about
have
Moorhead
you-
a little bit later.
Okay,
today.
all right.
Oh yeah, we keep coming to my high notes. Yeah.
Okay.
Moorhead, I think, is going to be an interesting spot to watch for cannabis. Some of the border battles.
Stick around. Don't leave.
Yeah.
We've
Watch
got
till
more.
the end.
We've got more coming.
More.
Well, hey,
Moorhead.
Easy.
Moorhead. Yeah. So North Dakota, like I said, personal possession, not sales, but
Okay.
personal growth on a limited amount.
I love and I hate this at the same time, right? Because I love this because it's going to continue to drive people to Minnesota.
Yeah.
I hate this because they're ignoring the progress that we're making in Minnesota.
Yeah.
But maybe they would have a different opinion on it. They being, the legislature. And can't say shout out to Christy Noem, but I hope the South Dakota one gets passed.
Yeah, me too. Yeah. I think it will be interesting to see what the legislatures in these two states do after it passes. So let's say each of these measures pass. The legislature could come in and create a system that would allow regulated sales.
Oh, yeah.
It just probably won't.
Okay, right.
So I guess we'll continue to watch to see as that demand continues to increase, as it's legal, but nobody's legally buying it. What does that mean? What does that look like? I think we could see some middle ground legislation come in that creates a system for people to obtain cannabis in perhaps a limited way, but in a very South Dakota sort of way.
Yeah, it will be very Dakota.
Very, very Dakota. So before we talk about another one of our Midwest friends, I want to go down south to talk about Florida.
Okay.
Because they are another state that's voting on adult use legalization. Now, they are voting on like full-blown legalization, you could say. It doesn't just legalize for personal use, but also would open up sales and really allow people to get more of like what is legalization.
And they need 60% to pass.
Yeah, so that's the tricky part compared to the other measures. This is a constitutional amendment.
Okay.
In Florida, for you to amend the Constitution, it can't just get 50%. It has to get 60%. And this has been voted on before, and it got more than 50%, but not more than 60%.
Does that mean that in the Constitution they've deemed cannabis illegal?
No, so that's the weird part about it. They don't have a voter initiative process outside of constitutional amendments.
Okay.
So if a private citizen says, man, I think we should pass a law, they call their lawmaker, they're not willing to do it. The only way the citizens can get at it is by proposing that constitutional amendment.
Does that have any similarity to Minnesota? Because we weren't able to vote on it.
For sure. So we're like one step removed from that, where in Minnesota, as a private citizen, I actually can't call a constitutional amendment. I can ask my legislator to call one, and they can put it to people's vote. But unfortunately, we're sort of one step further removed from direct democracy than they are in Florida.
I see.
Yeah, so we can call our legislature and say, hey, I really want this constitutional amendment. And if they agree, great. And if they don't, that's sort of where our ability to interact with the laws sort of stops.
Yep. Now, I'm reading here that Florida has a strict single-issue rule. So this initiative does not include expungement or home grow.
Yeah, so it doesn't do anything about the criminal convictions that have already happened. It doesn't provide people additional rights. It takes the medical industry that is currently online and opens it up to any adult over 21.
Doesn't Curaleaf have a massive stake in the Florida
Curaleaf,
medical?
Trulieve is the other one. Yeah, I think if I recall correctly, Florida's market is dominated primarily by like 3 businesses.
Yeah.
And that's sort of been it on the medical side.
It's nothing but hemp,
Yeah.
Curaleaf, Trulieve. No.
Oh, yeah. Skull Gummy, I think
Skull.
it's down there now. Yeah. Yeah, no. But very much so, they've had a pretty restrictive medical industry. And so to see that just transition over to adult use, it'll be interesting to see what that looks like.
Yeah, very Florida.
Very Florida. You'll be able to have up to an ounce of flour, up to 5 grams of concentrate, which is perfect for like a 1-week vacation in Florida. So that works out well.
Yeah, and thoughts and prayers with all the hurricanes.
Yeah. Oh my gosh, have you guys been watching that?
Yeah. It's all over TikTok and Instagram feed for me. Yeah.
I've got a video that I don't know if we want to put it. I think we should put it in. I'll send it to you. It's a TikTok that I was sent of someone, trees blowing around in the background, wind gushing around, water. Guy's ripping a dab rig. Shout out Florida, man.
Yeah. That was hilarious.
That was hilarious. What a way to end Florida. So let's return to the Midwest, talk about some of our friends in Nebraska. Now, Nebraska is having a tough time. They don't have adult use or medical currently in the state. So this measure is, you might seem like a sort of a slow roll to things, but it would be a major step forward in the state that currently doesn't allow any medical access.
Imagine like trying to put it into a cartoon form of Colorado is Nebraska's next door neighbor. And Colorado's just been having a party for like the last 10 years.
That is crazy to think about. That Colorado has, cafes opening up. There are places like that has perhaps one of the most developed cannabis markets in our country next to, like you said, Nebraska. Wow. Well, shout out to our friends in Nebraska that have been working hard to not just drive across the border, but actually bring cannabis across the border legally.
Yes.
Doing so with 2 different measures here. That single subject court ruling. So we got measure 437 and 438. So close to being 420.
So close. Nebraskans for medical marijuana.
Yep. So they've collected signatures, placed 2 measures on the bill. It would do 2 different things. So 37 would protect patients with health conditions and their caregivers from being arrested for using cannabis as recommended by a provider. So it sort of creates this medical rule that if you're a patient, you've got this recommendation, you can have cannabis without worrying about being arrested.
Do they have a medical cannabis program right now?
No.
Oh, so this would
be
legalize
brand new.
it. Yeah.
The other part that this measure would do, so measure 438, would establish a commission that would regulate the sale, manufacture, distribution, and delivery of cannabis for medical purposes.
This is a big step for Nebraska.
This is a big step. So we went from having our Office of Medical Cannabis, which has been operating in Minnesota for over a decade. We've had the Office of Cannabis Management, which has now been around for coming on 2 years, just about.
Sure.
This would be creating like that first step for them.
Wow.
This is something that California did in 1996.
Yes.
We are almost 30 years removed from the first medical state to Nebraska, which isn't even the last.
No, there are some states that are ignoring it even further than Nebraska.
Oh, yeah. Shout out to Idaho. So, yeah, really, I think all of these measures, Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, and Florida, could really move forward what cannabis looks like nationally. We've got a really cool opportunity to expand what access to cannabis looks like.
Yeah.
And, I hope the voters in those states take that opportunity. I remember sitting back watching the election in 2012 and thinking, man, like, will this really pass? Will Colorado really move forward with this?
Right.
Now we're at the point where, like, I think we're feeling pretty good about a lot of these. And
yeah.
So shout out to the activists in those states continuing to move cannabis forward and continuing to provide access to people who haven't had it.
100. That's great.
Yeah.
If you're tuning in, if you see this from Nebraska, I'd love to call somebody from Nebraska on the show.
Oh, yeah. In Nebraska, South Dakota, North Dakota, Florida, any activists in those states, give us a call. We'll feature you on this show. We were actually just talking. We can dial people in. We can give you a jingle, hear about some of the work that you're doing, because that boots on the ground work is why we're able to sit here today talking about all this stuff, doing dabs,
having a picnic.
Yeah, having a picnic. Wow, that's such a good transition. But before we talk and try this product, I do have like the not good part of the national news.
Oh, I didn't even see that part.
I know. So we were talking about a lot of expanded access that could come about in this November. And I want to talk about some restrictions to cannabis that's being placed in an unlikely state. Now, Jordan, if you had to guess, hemp-derived edibles that we got in Minnesota, what state do you think just acted to ban those?
Hint, it's not the one you think it is.
It's definitely not.
Mississippi.
California.
Oh,
yeah.
Wow. Talk me through that.
All right. So about a month ago, Governor Gavin Newsom signed an emergency measure. They're having all this THC products flood in, and it's not being sold through their regulated adult use market. They're saying kids are getting access to this. They're saying it's being sold in super high doses outside of what's allowed. And they don't have a way to regulate it outside of like stopping and then creating some rule structure around it. So this is an emergency stop, telling all of these people that have been selling hemp-derived edibles, hemp-derived products, that you can keep selling hemp-derived products. It just can't have any detectable THC. Not even just below 0.3%. No detectable THC.
Which is nearly impossible.
Yeah. You're not going to find a high-quality cannabis product made, I think, in the way that people want to like consume their cannabis products that's going to have no THC.
I mean, the California market, they worked so hard to establish the R-rated movie market.
Yep.
And a lot of lobbying went into place, a lot of licensure went into place, a lot of busts, a lot of... They've been through it. Like you said, the Compassionate Care Act went into effect in 1997. Yeah. Cannabis was legalized in 2018 recreationally in California. Now, there was quite a bit of illicit market going on between 97 and 2018. From what I hear from the growers that I know in California, that a lot of the illicit market has been gobbled up or it's been put to bed. And now, not to say there isn't a underground market, but that's more so licensed operators selling their product underneath the regular marketplace.
It fell off the truck.
Yeah, maybe. Yeah. And so now what's new is what I like to call the PG-13 market, or the hemp-derived low-dose edible market.
Yeah.
And you can sell that at Total Wine.
Yep.
You can sell that at Quick Trip. You can sell that at Ralph's. You know, I don't know if they ever sold it at Ralph's, but in Minnesota you could.
Absolutely.
The equivalent. And so people are mad because they put millions and millions of dollars into their business and their lobbying efforts, and as an industry, they're upset because, hey, this is a licensed dispensary, and you have to be 21 years or older, and you have to show your ID, and it has to be scanned, and you have to wait in a waiting room, and it's like all this rigmarole that the hemp-derived market gets around because you just can walk into a liquor store. And it's low dose, and where I think they're drawing the line is similar to South Dakota. They're like, how do we know that it's actually hemp derived versus cannabis derived Delta 9 that just gets put
Cannabis
into distillate,
light, if you will. Yeah, exactly.
Right, and so that's a big gist of it. It's actually the recreational cannabis lobbying and license operators mad that there's all these workarounds through the 2018 Farm Bill.
Totally.
That's allowing this
One of
market
my
to thrive.
favorite stats to share with people is one of the first states to ban Delta 8 was Colorado.
Yeah.
And now one of the first states to ban outright hemp-derived THC is California.
Very similar.
It's the markets that are, respectfully, controlled by adult use cannabis that then looks at this and goes, hey, you're able to sell that at a gas station to kids at a much higher dose than I'm allowed to just because you're hemp?
Right.
Like, how does that work? And so
it's such a hemp,
Yeah.
Illinois is struggling with this too.
Yeah. And I think we'll see this problem continue to spread throughout the country as more and more states are selling hemp-derived products, as they find a foothold in more and more industries.
Yeah.
How does that fit into medical states, adult use states, into no program states?
Yeah. Minnesota is just perfect because I say that lightly, but we didn't put the cart before the horse.
For sure.
Right? Yeah. Hemp is leading the way, and we're going to build around that versus trying to fit hemp into an already pre-established industry.
Yeah. And I think maybe we're lucky, but also I think maybe we just did it right. Maybe people are concerned about legitimate things in California.
Yeah.
But the way to solve it, as we've seen time and time again, is not prohibition, but regulation. And so to say we can't have any hemp-derived THC seems to just sort of fly in the face of this industry that we've been growing for a decade, more than that. I'm curious to see really how this ends up impacting people.
And combining a few words of wisdom or viewpoints that I've picked up on through the industry, what we really need as an overall industry is more consumers to grow the industry. Otherwise, you're just pulling from the illicit market into the established above ground market. Yeah. And so I believe that low-dose hemp-derived edibles allows more consumers to try cannabis and get into maybe a dispensary mindset, or being willing to order online or something like that. And so if we cut hemp-derived edibles off, I'm not saying California is absolutely doing it wrong, because there's a viewpoint there, but if we don't allow for the on-ramp, then we can't expect more consumers to come at the clip that we need to reasonably grow and fight for deschedulization and things like that.
Totally. I 100% agree with that, because I think we've seen over the past couple of years, hemp-derived edibles have really been able to expose people to cannabis. And sure, maybe not all of them are using it, but to see it every time you go to the liquor store, to see it every time you're driving home from work, it just makes it something that is just normal, as it should be. And so I guess I'm personally just a little disappointed to see California sort of have a second wave of reefer madness, and looking at this as not what are the regulations we need to keep people safe, but let's shut it down and then I guess figure out the next steps later.
Yeah, and California swings a big stick.
Oh yeah,
especially when we look at it's New York, California. There's a few big states that make a difference in how, and so this will be lobbied against, and it will probably be brought to Washington, and it will have significant effects.
Oh yeah, do you know how you know when you fucked up in the cannabis industry? when you get sued by Cheech and Chong, and Governor Newsom has now officially been sued by Cheech and Chong and a group of many other people, but basically saying, hey, we've built this brand, we've been allowed to sell this here. Who are you to overstep the legislature and to say, we can't have this?
There's a good follow on LinkedIn. I've never met him, but his name is Paulo.
Okay.
And he posted a photo today of the Cheech and Chong beverages at a liquor store, like on the floor. And then behind it was like an 11.1 ABV alcohol beverage. And it had a whole bunch of cartoon graphics on it. And it's like, what are we talking about when we're talking about protecting the kids? You've got cartoons on this alcohol product. And we're worried about the ability for people to get their hands on low-dose hemp-derived edibles. We're not talking about the same things. We're not playing by the same rules. This is, hopefully, with the hemp-derived edibles, we're able to get alcohol money into cannabis lobbying.
Yeah, I think that's so spot on. You know, you want to bring your kid into a dispensary, they're really not going to let you do that. You want to bring your kid into a liquor store? Not a problem.
Sure, Tanner.
Not a problem. All right, well, let's take a short break here. When we get back, that was a lot of news today. I want to try some products. I want to see what we got here.
Should we try some low-dose hemp-derived edibles?
Oh, that sounds good to me. We're going to take a short break here. When we get back,
we're going to have a picnic.
Let's do it.
Dabbler Depot's Seed and Sesh is the ultimate one-stop shop for all types of cannabis enthusiasts. From grow equipment, including seeds, tents, and lights, to all kinds of Minnesota-grown infused beverages and edibles, Seed and Sesh is a one-of-a-kind cannabis experience. It is also home of the Dabbler Studio, which is where this very podcast is recorded every Friday afternoon. You can also join us every Tuesday evening from 6 to 8 p.m. for our home grower meetup, where you can share in the joys of cannabis cultivation with like-minded folks from right here in the Twin Cities. Find Seed and Sesh at 951 Payne Avenue in St. Paul's East Side neighborhood. Dabbler Depot's Seed and Sesh. Growing plants, growing community.
Ready to kick off your home grow? We've got the perfect hookup for you. MinnesotaCannabisSeeds.com. They've got everything from fast flowering strains to unique hybrids, all ready for growing in Minnesota. And guess what? Our listeners get an exclusive deal. Use the code NL10 for a 10% discount on your entire order. Don't miss out and get started with the best seeds. Start your growth strong with MinnesotaCannabisSeeds.com. Remember, NL10 for 10% off at MinnesotaCannabisSeeds.com. Grab your seeds today.
And we're back with a new beverage. I've never heard of this beverage.
No, so I hadn't either. It's always fun walking in the studio and being like, wow, what's on our shelf today? And today we came in and there was a picnic happening.
Oh, this is so cool. This is Picnic. It's a cannabis-infused sparkling beverage. I believe we were introduced to it through Kale from Dabbler Depot.
Yeah.
Is this available at Dabbler Depot?
It is.
Awesome. So this is 5 milligrams THC, 25 milligrams CBG. Honestly, love that. That I would have picked another product, but it had 25 milligrams CBG. So I was like, all right, let's go.
Yeah,
I can't wait to try
fair.
this on a
That's
Friday
fair.
afternoon. But this was kind of a suggestion from, Tanner and Kale and Jordan at Dabbler Depot, and it looks great. It's got a really cool brand to it, and it's got the artist's name on the back, Ashley Mary Art.
Yeah.
Super cool.
Yeah, I love when people use the can not just as an informative piece of here's what's in it and buy it, but actually to really establish, like, that's the first thing that I noticed about this product. I didn't really actually, until you said it just a moment ago, even see that it had CBG in it. Like, that's sort of cool. The first thing that stuck out to me was just the pop of the art.
And
so
nowadays, you got to stand out. There's 80 other options on the shelf. Smart. And this is brought to you by the team behind, or the team Midwest Botanical Coalition, which is a very funny name for a group that we know pretty well in the Twin Cities here. But shout out to them. They're doing a lot of co-packing, a lot of manufacturing. I was at Certix a couple weeks ago, and Midwest Botanical Coalition is producing the Certix gummies.
Okay, for sure.
Shout out to them. And let's crack it open and see how it tastes.
Yeah, so this is going to be classic ruby grapefruit. I'm excited to see if we get that color, that ruby color that it sort of promises.
Oh, smells good. Here, I'll let you pour. I'm
All right.
clumsy.
We're going to bring the microphone with me as we pour here. Oh, yeah. Oh,
Shoop, 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 shoop.
this is why Jordan keeps paper towels on hand for us.
I keep that purple stuff in my cup.
So initial reactions to this, I was going to, honestly, I sort of expected it to have a little bit of a red hue to it. And
Because it's ruby red.
because it was ruby red. And this is
Or ruby grapefruit, I suppose.
ruby clear.
Yes. So this is, a seltzer, definitely.
Mm-hmm.
They say sparkling beverage, but I got to imagine it's still categorized as a seltzer.
I guess it will be up to the Legacy Cup to see how it's classified.
Mm-hmm.
All right, let's give this a taste
Ooh.
here.
This would be tough for me to drink 3. I think I'd be feeling some serious cotton mouth after the second one.
It's kind of got a Fresca vibe to it.
Yeah.
But it has the ruby side of the grapefruit, which
Right.
I love Fresca. That's actually one of my favorite mixies. It's bitter in the back of my tongue.
Yeah, I definitely get that. It almost makes me wonder if that's the flavoring or if that's like cannabinoids, like
Sure.
Molson that we started
Could
tasting
be.
a little bit of.
I do notice like right away I get a little perk, which is nice. And I noticed that with higher CBG products that it's like, oh, good. I'm here. I like that.
You know my thought with this one. So I got to be honest. This probably isn't a beverage that I would drink just like straight up by itself. But I could see this being a really cool base for making a mixed drink.
Yeah.
Maybe you have this, you add a little bit more citrus to it. Maybe you have like a lime on the edge. I don't know. I think there's ways you could dress this up and turn this into something that would be like a pretty cool mixed drink of sorts.
Can we be honest with our audience as well? And the retailers that are out there and the producers in this category, they know that people are going to experiment with these beverages. So building a solid base product that has only 5 milligrams of THC, it's not going to knock you on your ass, and then 25 milligrams of CBG, that's probably a fun product to experiment with if you are into like mixing other things with your THC beverages.
For sure.
And I know these guys are smart people, the producers of this brand. They're probably thinking along those lines. Hey, let's get a good base, and if you want to dress it up and make a THC cocktail, it's a good one to work with.
Yeah. That's an interesting one. How would you guys, what would you guys rank this one? Like, we don't need to do like a strict like 1 through 10 kind of thing, but sort of like, what's your vibes?
It kind of gives a similar, like comparable, not necessarily mouthfeel or anything like literal tangible about it, but I feel like it fits into that same category as like a White Claw.
Okay, for sure.
Kind of like, because there are alcoholic seltzers out there that are, very fruit forward, real sugar. And then on kind of the other end of the spectrum is kind of the White Claws. The Truly's got more of that, obviously, artificial sweetener, medicinal, clinical kind of sweetness to it.
Yeah. I think you nailed that spot on. This does feel like the Cannabis White Claw.
And it's not like White Claw's bad. No, like White Claw is the highest volume selling alcoholic beverage in the country for the last 2 years.
Sure.
So like, I don't quote me on that, but it's up there in terms of
seltzer started to pop
non-spirit.
2020, I think
Yeah.
White Claws held a commanding presence in the industry.
Yeah.
This is too bitter for me. But if you dress it up, I could definitely have some fun with it as a cocktail.
Yeah, I think sort of like a real picnic. It might not be for everyone, but if you do the right things, you bring the right things along, maybe it can be a really fun time.
Yeah. But that being said, like I drank 2 espressos this morning that were extremely bitter.
Yeah.
If I get the effect that I'm looking for, I'm willing to compromise on taste.
That's fair. Yeah, super fair. I'd actually be really curious. I want other people to try this and sort of give us their vibes. Stop on by Seed and Sesh. They actually have this product here. You can give it a try. Because I'd be curious to see, how do you guys use this product? Or, you might try it and go, Tanner, this is perfect as is. No notes. We'll see.
I like the can more than I like what's inside.
Yeah, I think I agree.
But I'm with the effects. Like I would drink a call for more CBG. 25 milligrams CBG. I think they nailed that. I think it's a little bitter, but I love the branding.
Now, here's a question for you, because I know you're generally a person that consumes a little bit of that like higher non-THC cannabinoid amount. I think you take a higher CBD dosage than like most people I know, and I don't mean that negatively.
I think the other night, and I was talking to you before I did this because I'm getting to the end of my tincture bottle. And so I just opened it up and like took a swig. I think I took around 1,200 milligrams
Oh yeah,
the other night.
for sure. So I think for non-intoxicating cannabinoids, I think I think you have it beat.
Okay.
This has 25 milligrams of CBG because it's classified as one serving. They could have up to 50 milligrams of CBG in here.
Yeah.
Would a 50 milligram version of this taste the same, looks the same? Does that appeal to you more? Would you be more likely to drink it because it gives you more of that effect?
Yeah, and I think you can start to get more into performance or sports beverage, where I see some of these brands going. I do think you called out something that's important for not the OGs, but the folks that are really in tune with cannabis beverages. The more CBG or the more minor cannabinoids that you put into the product, you do have a trade-off on, is that emulsion going to come through the flavor, and is that what we're dealing with here? So great call out on your side, and I would say 25 milligrams is just a starting point, but it is meaningful because you can have two, but I guess I like the 5-to-1 ratio. I think that's a popular ratio.
I dig it, man. No, I think I really appreciate your insights on this because realistically, when I'm looking for edible products, I'm not a huge person that incorporates a bunch of other cannabinoids into it. This just sort of I don't find as much of a personal effect that I'm looking for from that. But it's really cool to hear from people that really feature more of those other cannabinoids. Yeah. What your thoughts are.
If this was like our home and we were roommates, I would be sliding you CBG gummies.
There we go. I like it. Well, I think let's leave that behind. I'd be curious to hear people's thoughts on that. If you give it a try, drop it in the notes below.
Yeah.
Swing by Dabbler Depot, give it a shot.
Shout out to this new brand.
It's a picnic.
Hey, I know I've got some high notes, but I'm really curious about yours.
All right. So, I'm excited to share the high notes. I've been waiting for this one for a minute.
I haven't seen you in a few.
So I'm wearing my Fear the Ear shirt today.
And what's your connection to Concordia College?
Oh, such a great question. No connection. No. My wife graduated from Concordia. My wife graduated from Concordia. She played in the band at Concordia College. Shout out to the French horn. And before she gets mad at me, it's the horn. The French horn is not the technical. I've been corrected.
Before. There is just one.
In an orchestra or in a band, it is a horn. The instrument could be a French. I'm
classic France just being like, it's ours.
I hate it.
This horn right here is ours.
So the college is old. I don't know how old, but their band is 125 years old. So they decided to have an anniversary get together where they had anyone who was alumni of the band could come back and play in this alumni band.
Hell yeah.
They had nearly 300 people on stage playing in the largest band that I've ever seen in my life. They had to move it into the field house, which is just like a football field. And they took up the entire width of that with just people in every section.
Was it just a band performance? Was it accompanied with a football game?
No. It's funny you say that. I thought this was just like a music homecoming. I learned on the drive back there actually was a football game that took place. I just had no idea. Concordia is not a sports school.
Sure.
They do have a sports program.
Yeah, they're part of the MIAC.
Okay, yeah. I learned something new today. There we go. There was a football game.
Okay.
I don't know how it went, but what I am excited to share with you is the things that I got to do in Moorhead, and specifically one place. Now,
did you happen to unwind?
I didn't stop by Unwind, although I did. I as we were driving back, I was thinking, oh man, we really should stop there. But it was like 8 a.m. on a Sunday.
Oh,
I was like, I don't know if these are Unwind hours.
Right,
so.
not a bit, no.
Kept driving past, but yeah, if you're in Moorhead, check out Unwind. They're a pretty cool place. And but the place that I got to check out was, I think, the coolest park I've ever seen in my life. Now, there's a lot of really interesting stuff in Moorhead. I don't know if you know this. It's the home of the Dilly Bar. There's a Dairy Queen in town that was the first place that ever dipped the dilly bar. They have a giant dilly bar outside. They have keychains you can buy that have a dilly bar on it.
Wow. Did you have one?
I didn't get a keychain, but I did buy a shirt.
Yeah.
I'll wear it. Oh, did I have a dilly bar?
Did you have
Did I eat one?
Imbibe?
No.
Okay.
No, I did not get a
Are
dilly
you
bar.
a non-dairy guy?
No, I sometimes do dairy.
Okay.
I was thinking, like, do I get a dilly bar at the home of the dilly bar?
Right.
And then I didn't. I got a Blizzard instead. But I did buy a shirt.
He went. He was at Dairy Queen.
Oh yeah. I have a shirt I'll wear on the show next week that says America's Dairy Queen, and then on the back has like an artsy picture of the Dairy Queen location.
Okay.
It's pretty cool. I have a picture of myself. Maybe I'll send it to you. We'll put it in of me posing in front of the dilly bar. Super proud. But that's not what I want to talk about.
I'm sorry.
If you go slightly over the border to Fargo, where I maybe brought my Puffco and maybe went and broke the law just for old time's sake, but I of course didn't. But they do have right across the border the Statue of Liberty. Did you guys know that? In Fargo, they have a Statue of Liberty. I got to see it. It's like 6 feet tall. But the thing that I most want to talk about, Daly Park. Have you guys ever heard of this?
I think so.
Oh, yeah. So I think I was talking about it last week when I came. I was
Yes.
so proud that I finally got a chance to go to Daly Park.
Okay.
Have you ever heard of Daly Park before?
No. How is it spelled?
Daily space PARK.
I got.
QUE.
Yeah, there we go. There we go.
I'm with it.
Daly Park. Now, Daly Park is unique in that it is Minnesota's smallest municipal park. The smallest park you've ever seen. Now, how small is it? I've got the stats. I'm pulling it up. Daly Park is a triangular park that is 0.013 acres.
Okay.
To put that into perspective, it's roughly 500 square feet.
Okay.
Have you ever seen like a roundabout
Yeah.
that has like a little grassy area in the middle?
Yeah.
It's smaller than that. This is like 3 streets that sort of come together and form like an awkward triangle shape.
Yeah.
That then they put a bunch of like grass in the middle.
It kind of reminds me of the park in Uptown near the synagogue.
Yeah. Oh, yeah. No, it is like an eighth of the size of, like, I don't even, it is
smaller than that.
Fraction of the size. It is super cool. Now, it's triangular shape, as I mentioned, so I've heard that students will sometimes get pizza and go eat it in Daly Park. It's just like a common activity people do.
Triangles on triangles.
Could you do a dab in Daly Park? Well, not legally. Unfortunately, Moorhead bans smoking in all public parks.
Oh, that's right.
But probably could. I don't know. Daly Park, I think, is really one of those places that every single person, if you're driving through Moorhead, if you're driving through Fargo, if you're even in that part of the state, it is worth stopping to see. Now, you're going to drive up to it and you're going to say, oh, where do I park? Because there's not a parking lot. You just sort of put your car on the street next to someone's home.
Wow.
And then you're there.
How many cars big is Daly Park?
Maybe 2. Maybe. I think, I think you could probably park like 2 full cars in the grassy area.
Okay.
That's about it.
That's not a very big park.
No, it's not a very big park. But it is one of those places that, man, I wish I knew more about how it came together.
Right.
From what I've heard, it just sort of came together like, well, we've got this grassy area. I guess it could sort of be a park. But I want to go back to the exact moment. I want to be a fly on the wall in City Hall when someone said to the city manager, we need to start a new park. And he's like, oh, where? And they go, that intersection. And enough people said yes.
Right.
That there is now a sign when you go there that says Daly Park, Moorhead's smallest park. And it's actually not just Moorhead's smallest park, but it's the smallest park in all of Minnesota.
In Minnesota.
Yeah.
Wow.
Do you think it's a bit?
So that's the thing about Moorhead. Everything feels like a bit there. The fact that they have the Statue of Liberty just like because it was at like it's like a patriotic, like, well, we got to be patriotic. So what's patriotic? The Statue of Liberty. We got to open a park. There's a museum there for a boat that someone built and sailed to Norway. Just like they were bored and just did that. And now there's a museum for it. Moorhead feels like a bit. Their mascot is a corn on the cob. They all walk around wearing shirts that say "Fear the Ear." And this is a real place in Minnesota, and perhaps home to the first off-tribal land native-owned dispensary.
Yeah.
I got a chance to go to JL Beers, which is the future home of a White Earth dispensary. So you're going to be able to buy flower, go hang out in the smallest park, go get a dilly bar, go see the Statue of Liberty, look at some trains. I don't know.
White Earth opening up a dispensary in Moorhead is like a knight sliding across the chessboard and just sniping somebody 6 rows down.
It's a move directly into the king, and oh boy, am I stoked to hopefully go to homecoming next year.
Yeah.
And
126 years strong.
yeah, 126 years strong. They're actually, unfortunately, they're not doing a band reunion next year. I learned they did it for the 100th, and then they did it again for the 101st because they like had someone new, and they're like, well, we got to do another celebration. And then they committed no more. Only every 25 years. So 25 years from now, I'll be back in Moorhead.
And if you want to go, there probably will be a football game next.
Maybe, allegedly.
If football's still around.
If football's still around. Steve,
Yeah.
what is your high note this week? This is your last high note before you're a dad. So we're going to play this for your kid in the future. So
Yeah.
no pressure, but
All right.
what's up?
I am taking a little break, but I'll be back.
Yeah.
I was at a wedding last weekend, and I was speaking with someone, and they were telling me, and let me keep in mind, this person is a grower. Like, they make their living growing cannabis.
Okay.
And they put, they help install grow facilities. Like, they've got their chops. But they were telling me that they don't use a grinder. They instead use a scissors. And their rationale...
To chop their weed? Like to put it in their joint? Or?
Yes. Like
Okay.
a small, almost like a baby finger. Speaking of babies, like a baby toenail clippers or something like that. And they'll ever so daintily like just cut the leaves off the bud. And their rationale was they spend all this time growing these beautiful flowers, and they're praised for their flowers, that to just grind it up and turn it into dust, it goes against their grain. It just rubs them the wrong way. And I just thought, have you ever heard of someone using a scissors to cut the buds off the stems? I had never.
I have seen people do it when they didn't have a grinder. I've never seen someone intentionally do that before.
Yeah, this was new to me. But since then, I've thrown away the grinder I got at Canacon on the trade floor because it was a shitty grinder, and it was just a promotional piece, and I was like, I don't need this. And my other grinder from Stores and Pickle is somewhere that I haven't been able to find for a while. So I'm like out a grinder, and I'm taking the little buds and the leaves off the nugs.
Wow.
And I'm pulling them off, and I'm just packing them into the Stores and Pickle Mighty or Crafty. Actually, I'm using a Crafty, but soon I'll be using a Mighty. And
Mighty.
And I am embodying their philosophy, maybe for a limited time, but they were telling me that they do this with joints. And I can't imagine like breaking down a full gram, little leaf by little leaf, and putting it onto your rolling paper.
All right, so now we got to play the game of guessing who was at this wedding.
Now,
Who does this?
This was
because I know what wedding this was.
This was a very cannabis-friendly wedding.
Yeah.
There wasn't a dab bar, but there was a joint rolling station at the wedding.
And just so we can plug in, this wedding might have happened because of a Canna Connect event. Is that real?
I was mentioned in the ceremony.
Incredible.
And it was, at the time, it was Canna MN. It was pre-Canna Connect, but it was about 3 years ago. And the funniest story, I think Kurt would be okay telling. So it was Kurt and Rochelle. Shout out to Kurt and Rochelle.
Former guest on the show.
Former guest on the show. And my coworker, Kurt Kinnaman. I didn't know this. He almost didn't show up. He almost didn't make it to the event because parking at Stadium Bar and Grill is so bad in downtown Minneapolis on Washington Avenue that he nearly drove from River Falls and turned around because he couldn't find a parking spot. But he had this specific strain with him that he wanted to show. It was like alien cookies or
for sure.
Like a Mac Max alien strain, and Rochelle and Kurt bonded over that strain, and him bringing that flower to the event like created this very strong connection, and they've been dating ever since.
That's so cool.
Now they're married. Beautiful ceremony, like touching, intimate. But I don't. You know this person, but I don't know if you'll be able to guess.
Okay. No matter who I guess, I'm gonna be surprised, and we don't have to say their name right here.
Yeah.
But to answer your question, I have never heard of that before. That's a new one to me. Jordan, have you ever done that before?
Only in a pinch.
Only in a pinch,
Right.
Yeah,
Yeah,
Pinch.
usually-
And honestly, I would probably just pinch it
yeah just break it
before
apart.
do. Like, for my thinking is like surface area of flower, like ready to be combusted. And I'm like, if I'm sitting there with a scissors, cutting bit by bit off, I'm already like out there for 15 minutes just getting the joint ready to go.
That's fair.
And then I'm going to take my 20 minutes to just sit and enjoy it, light it up a couple times while I'm doing other things. And is the juice worth the squeeze?
And
Yeah.
for them, it is, and I respect
Yeah.
the care
Totally.
that
Well,
they take.
And like I talk about my mom so much on this show. Shout out, Mom.
She watches.
She does. It's true. And she tells me when I tell really funny stories that maybe aren't great for the podcast. But one thing that she has always talked about is mindful activities. Mindfully eat. Don't just like inhale your food, but really savor every bite.
Very mindful.
Mindfully walk. Don't just like go from one place to another, but really take in what you're seeing, smelling, hearing as you're going. And I could see, if you're the grower of this product, mindfully breaking it apart piece by piece, really enjoying the value of the work that you did, I could see
Yeah.
getting that satisfaction from it.
See,
I totally get it.
I do that on the inhale.
All right, there we go.
That's
Yeah,
where
that's
my
fair.
enjoyment
That's
is.
Yeah. Speaking of which, Jordan, how's your plant doing?
My plant is out in the tent. Kale's got it out behind us right now. He's just finishing it up because that frost is starting to set in. So I'm like,
yeah.
let's get you inside. The nug density looks good.
I love it.
Trichomes are ambering up nicely, and Kale said within the week he'll probably chop it, and then I just offered it up as like a if you guys want to do like the home growing meetup night on Tuesdays, just like if you guys want to show people how to trim,
Cool.
go ahead. Use
Oh,
it.
cool.
Well, we want to give you your kudos. We were talking about it off air, but we'll bring it to the podcast. You do bonsai work or have done bonsai work, and that is so clearly evident in the way that your plant was grown. You can see how it was tied down meticulously to allow not too far away from the plant, but just enough for it to get light. It looks like a plant that someone who has been growing cannabis for years
Really?
tied down. So shout out to your homegrown, man.
That is very affirming to hear.
Oh, yeah.
I don't know what I don't know, and I am just kind of having fun while I'm doing it. Really, it's always been more about the process, like mindful gardening. Honestly,
Yeah.
getting to your mom's point, like I care less about the end result than I do just the process of coming home from work, looking at the plant, studying it, seeing what is different between this morning when I looked at it and this afternoon when I look at it. And for me, it's more just like, a
The
hobby of
destination is the
gardening.
journey.
Yeah. It's the nugs we find along the way.
Well, Jordan, I appreciate that. What have you been smoking on this week? What's your high note to sort of round out our weekly fun?
Okay, so this is not a new consideration. Actually, probably far from it. I am not the first person to have this thought, but I think it gets to the really getting to know somebody by how they answer the question. But my wife and I were having a debate the other night about the best cut of French fry.
Okay.
I have a few options that I could lean either way any day. Any day of the
Let's
week.
throw some names in the ring.
I'm a big advocate for hand cut and crinkle cut. I
Okay.
think crinkle cut
For sure.
doesn't get the love it should get.
Yeah, I'm with that. I'm gonna throw Curly into the ring.
See, that is just such a left field for me because I'm like, what does this get me? What is the benefit of the curly? Like, I understand some Arby's seasoning, like whatever they want to chuck on there, but like the function of a curly fry is to be cute.
I like the density of the bite.
Mm.
I'm getting a little more mass per fry.
The curly fry has better bag appeal, I think.
Sure.
You look in and you're like, wow, that's nice.
Bigger nugs.
Bigger nugs. Wow. I think French fry type is such like an important classification. Because I agree with you. There are people that I think like inferior fries.
I agree.
Is there a best fry that you can pick up at the grocery store? Is there a best frozen fry? Because I feel like I always struggle to find the right fry.
I have a lot of opinions. Jordan, what's your go-to frozen fry?
It's gotta be the just classic Ore-Ida crinkle cut. And maybe it's a nostalgia factor. That's what my mom would throw in the pan and just whip into the oven with like a grilled cheese for me and the siblings on a Tuesday night. I think I like the ridges for scoopability. You still get a nice fry shape, but you get that liftability for any of your preferred sauces.
All right. So here's where we get to have the fight. My thought is, if you are making it at home, I'm presuming in an oven.
Yeah.
Oven, air fryer.
Crinkle and straight cut, both the wrong type of fry to use. I think both of those fries are best served in, like, as they're intended, like as a deep fried potato delight. When I think it's in an oven, I think it ruins the flavor. It ruins the texture. It doesn't give me what I'm looking for. Whereas a waffle fry or a tater tot out of the oven, I think is much closer to my preferred potato
Delivery system.
I was initially thinking crinkle cut and waffle were the same, but now I'm realizing what a crinkle cut fry is based
the ridges.
the wave.
Yeah.
But I'm with you. I mean, if I had to choose between waffle and tater, I'm going tater tot in the oven.
Okay, for sure.
Because you can shake the pan a little bit and get them onto the other side. I do love a good like skin on, fatter edge of the waffle fry.
Okay, for sure. I get what you're picturing.
Not everyone.
The wedges almost of sorts.
I was an early Buffalo Wild Wings. Actually worked for Buffalo Wild Wings back in the day, but in high school I remember getting the potato wedges.
Okay, yeah.
And you can get them with cheese or without cheese. But anyway, like love a good wedge or a ring. Lately I've been thinking about, man, I want to make potatoes at home where I'm just slicing the potato into like small inches and like letting it dry out a little bit, because potatoes hold a lot of water density. So then, to get that restaurant flavor, you got to let them dry out a little bit.
No.
Okay.
I'm going to correct you on that.
Help me out.
What you want to do is you cut your potatoes however shape you want.
Okay.
You throw them in salted cold water.
Yes.
And you just throw them in the fridge to separate the starches.
Okay.
It'll pull the starch out of the potato.
Yes.
And then you let them sit overnight or a couple hours, whatever.
Okay.
Then you'll dump out the water, give them another rinse, and then lay them out, dry them out a little bit. You don't want them to dry out, but that's how you get the crisp. That's how you get structure. It's taking that starches out of there, because the starches are what hold on to water.
I'm going to call you tomorrow morning when I'm making these potatoes.
Dude, I will FaceTime you through it, baby.
Throw some Dr. Dab seasoning on there.
Okay.
Hey, shout out to Dr. Dabs. We miss you. We hope you feel better, and we'll come back with another episode next year.
Yeah. I sure hope he didn't eat some bad gummies.
Ooh, yeah.
So just a follow-up question on that. Well, so I liked hearing your thoughts on the type of potato that you like and what we like making at home. But if I were to, like, I don't know, hypothetically, like, kidnap you, throw you in the back of a white van, and say, bring me to the best French fry in town.
Yep.
Where do you tell me to go?
Okay, so now I'm going to bring up a French fry that I didn't even list before, but it is, I think, one of my favorite fries, and that's Blue Door Pub. It's a hand-cut fry.
Whoa.
Well salted, perfectly seasoned, perfectly crispy. I think Blue Door Pub has like the best. They can get like greasy, but also it's like you're eating French fries. Deal with it.
Yeah, wow. That was like my go-to place
Blue
in
Door
college.
Pub. Blue Door Pub.
What Blue Door do you go to?
The one closest to me now is Longfellow.
That one's with the Blue Door.
Yep. Fun fact, side note, I was at my we were doing my bachelor party. We had just done some breweries, and we were like, all right, we got to get burgers. So we go to Blue Door Pub. It's busy, but we're waiting outside. And my buddy who goes to, put it into like hey, we got 8, 10, whatever of us. He comes back out just like no expression on his face. And he goes, Bernie Sanders is in there. And I'm like, okay. And then without missing a beat, another one of my buddies goes, is he splitting the bill with everybody?
Socialism, you get it?
Yeah. Did you know Bernie Sanders is speaking in town tonight, in Minneapolis?
No way.
Yeah.
I've seen Bernie Sanders in town before. That's a good show.
Yeah.
But anyway, he was leaving as we were like getting called to our table, and the only interaction I've ever had with Bernie Sanders is magical. He's walking out. His bodyguards are like kind of like making sure we're not too close, and I go, Bernie, it's my bachelor party. And he kind of turns toward me, but doesn't really look at me. He goes, happy birthday.
So good.
That is a great.
And this is on video. There is a cell phone video
Wow.
of me just like drunkenly being like, Bernie, it's my bachelor party. And then him going, happy birthday. So
That's so good.
I did not see that coming at all.
happy birthday.
That's so good.
If only he was our. No, I'm just kidding.
All right, so Steve, French fries. Where do you go in town when you're looking for a good French fry?
Man, I would say my like go-to. I like want Culver's, but I can never commit.
Okay.
And so like what I end up
Too long of a wait.
oftentimes, like we were coming back on Sunday from southern Minnesota, and I was like, all right, we're gonna get Culver's, we're gonna get fries, we're gonna get the burger, whatever. I was like, I see the line, it's like 6 cars long. I'm like, do I really want fast food that bad? So then I turn around, and we're in like Lakeville or Owatonna, and I stand in line for 15 minutes at Chipotle. Because if you've been to a Chipotle since the pandemic, you realize like the lines are just out of control.
Oh, yeah.
And there's no sense of like calmness inside the kitchen. It is just a madhouse trying to get all those ingredients out, and the online orders are coming in, it's hectic.
Yeah.
McDonald's, I'd say.
Okay,
I just go with McDonald's. McDonald's is like, even though I don't agree with a lot of the things around McDonald's, like it's the fastest way to get in and out, and it's probably the fries I eat the most.
Yep.
I think that's super fair.
Those fries get you through some rough spots in your life, I'd say.
Yeah. It is consistent.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, it is. It's like the Northern Lights podcast.
But gotta check out the Five Guys fries too.
I mean-
I put those in the hand
Cajun
cut.
fries.
The
at Five
Cajun,
Guys.
those are hand cut. I wouldn't say they're up
good.
to Blue Door level,
Yeah.
but they're like in terms of fast food. Oh, is Five Guys isn't really
It's fast food, yeah.
but they don't have a drive-through. Can you consider it fast food if there's no drive-through?
Well, nowadays with cities getting rid of drive-throughs, I think you have to be able to, omit that. But when I was in college, Blue Door Pub opened up right down the street from where I lived, and it was the first Blue Door right near St. Thomas.
Selby
Rest
in
Avenue,
peace.
no longer there. And you used to be able to order, like they almost had like a secret menu, and you could get the tots, but you could get them with like the flavor of the wings, and you could take the wet sauce from the wings and put them on the tots, and we're talking like a pound. They would load it up, and this was 2010, 2011, so like back in my day, tots were a lot cheaper, right?
Yeah.
They weren't $8 or whatever.
Yeah, that whole bag of probably cost you what, like 35 cents?
Yeah, oh yeah, not from them, but
Yeah.
This is a bad time to mention I haven't eaten anything today yet.
All right, well, so I'll round out with a recommendation.
Yes,
Because
please.
here's where
So
I would
many.
go for a French fry. And unfortunately, it closed 3 hours ago. But still something you can go and do tomorrow. Do you like breakfast potatoes?
Of course. Oh my God.
So I think breakfast potatoes are one of those like sleeper types of potatoes. It's a preferred consumption method of mine, if you will. And I think Fat Nat's Eggs. It's a small. It's like a breakfast restaurant.
Okay.
They've got a location in New Hope. They've got one in St. Anthony, and I could not recommend their potatoes enough. They're slightly spicy. They've got nice amounts of oil, and they are fried to perfection.
what are the chances that your favorite breakfast potato restaurant has a location in New Hope and a location in St. Anthony?
Isn't it so weird? So it's funny you say that because the reason is
I own the restaurant.
I used to live in New Hope, and I might currently live in St. Anthony. And when we were looking for apartments, and I saw that this place was only less than a mile from Fat Nat's Eggs, it was game over.
Yeah.
I told my wife, I'm sorry, this is a non-negotiable for me, and we've been living there ever since.
I'm with the shits.
I'm with the shits. I need the breakfast. In fact, we were gonna go this morning to go get it, but fortunately I had work meeting come up, so I wasn't able to. But you know that by the time this episode comes out, I will have eaten these potatoes at Fat Nat's Eggs, because I'm probably gonna wake up tomorrow and go get those potatoes at Fat Nats Eggs. Yeah.
Reach out to us, Fat Nats.
Yeah, we'd love have you.
We record every Friday
All
afternoon.
right, here's the last thing I'll say about this place. I used to go there a lot in high school, like maybe a little bit too much because, I was taking acid and hanging out and doing all that stuff. And when I went off to college, they gave me a mug to take with me as like a little don't forget about us. And I still have it in my kitchen. So who knows? It might appear on our shelf one of these days. And so if you spot the mug, put it in the comments. I don't know.
I can just picture him going to Fat Nats, doing some homework, going to the movies, watching Frozen.
For the 7th time.
Yeah. All of that is correct except the homework part.
And thanks for watching the Northern Lights
that
podcast.
feels like a good spot to leave it. So we're going to be back in your feeds next week, but Steve, you're going to be on a short break.
Yes.
We're going to miss having you here. The whole community will miss seeing your face. You're still going to be around. It's not like you're disappearing.
Yeah.
But yeah, guys, put your positive thoughts to Steve in the comments. Drop those in. You've been a really stable voice on this show for a long time. So it'll be sort of sad to lose you for a couple days, but we'll keep it running. And
we've got some great guests lined up. We've got Jason Tarasek on the podcast coming up. Elizabeth Sage from Sage the Gangier, and we're gonna keep it rolling.
Well, we're gonna do our best to make sure it's not like that meme where you come in with the pizzas and you're like, "I'm back, guys," and everything's on fire. So it's gonna be great.
Thanks to our sponsors. Thanks to the Dabbler Depot, Union Bank and Trust, Natural Harvest, North Star Law Group. Tanner, thank you.
Yeah, no, I truly, thanks to everyone that helps to make this show possible. Shout out to Jordan. I love that we get to see your face. Second episode with the Jordan cam. So truly, just like thanks everyone for helping to make this possible. As I mentioned earlier, we're going to be back in your feeds in just about a week. So make sure to hit that subscribe button. We're on YouTube, Spotify, Apple Podcasts.
Follow us on LinkedIn, Facebook, Instagram.
All of those. And we'll be back very soon, y'all. Thanks for watching. Northern Lights is a Minnesota Cannabis College production. This episode was produced by me, Tanner Barris, and by Steve Eigenman and Jordan Whiff. Production assistance from Marcus Harkis, Shayna Payton, and John Bartee. Video and audio recording at the Dabbler Depot studio by Jordan Whiff. The information provided in this podcast does not, and is not intended to, constitute legal advice, but is instead for general information purposes only. No listener should act solely on the basis of information provided without first seeking advice from their own legal counsel. The views and opinions expressed in this program are those of the speakers and do not necessarily reflect the views or positions of the Minnesota Cannabis College. Please listen responsibly.